Imagine how your life would be if you could hear sounds as small as a grain of sand when someone is speaking. That's the superpower of my next guest. Tracy Goodwin is a 6'2" splenic manifester, and she's kicking off the interview summer series, Conscious Creation in the Age of AI. Tracy uses her superpower for voice coaching. And she's not a voice coach like traditional voice coaches who work with dialect or slowing down or pausing or annotation. She's actually working with the wounding around or behind the voice masks that we wear. I had the pleasure of working with Tracy personally for the last 6 months, and I can tell you that she's the real deal. Today, we are having a robust conversation around why authenticity matters now more than ever in the online space, and how we are not ever going to get that through AI. Tracy really gets on the soapbox about calling it in and looking for everything to be fast and easy as creative entrepreneurs, and asks us to focus on our ideal clients and the experience that they are here to have, so that together we can have a big impact and really change things for the better. She's not necessarily anti-AI, but she's sure not on the bandwagon of using it for everything in our businesses. Welcome, Tracy. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here with me to kick off this AI series.
Well, I'm so excited that I'm going to get to kick it off, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm frustrated beyond measure that today and the days leading up to this, I have had so many voice challenges. So I hope you can bear with me and my little bit of hoarseness and nasality, but I can't wait to dive into the conversation.
Yeah, I know it's going to be worth it, even with your nasality that you feel like you have there. So this is totally unrelated to our AI episode, but I'm curious because when I started working with you as a voice coach, I lost my voice. I think twice that happened when we started together. Does that happen a lot with people in your world when there are shifts coming?
It is stunning to watch. And even like we were talking before we started today, I feel pretty confident that my voice and this illness has to do with a move I'm about to make out of a city that is oppressive to me. But it is, and I don't ever tell the students this, but it is like clockwork. At week 3, what happens? At week 6, what happens? That is because the subconscious, as you know, the way I approach voice, the subconscious is truly calling the shots on the voice, and people will lose their voice. They will get, it is clockwork. And every time, and I've had people that I've worked with many times over the years that they completely lost their voice. And there was always an outside factor. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, and I'm not saying don't go to the doctor if you lose your voice, but there's always this silencing that is happening around us when we lose our voice. So it's truly fascinating.
So my listeners have heard little tidbits about you for the last 6 months or so. I guess I've been in your world and working with you. And so they've been hearing little bit of mic drops about things from Tracy. Can you tell me in your words about your work? How did this come to be? Tell us all of the things about psychology of the voice.
Well, psychology of the voice almost didn't become a thing because I was working so hard to not work with the vehicle of the voice. And that is because I was actually raised in a family where I wasn't allowed to speak. And as a result of that, there were many catastrophic things that happened in my life. So I couldn't make the connection. I was a little slow on the take, Vickie. I couldn't make the connection. I felt like an imposter. How in the world could I be being called? And I was very much being called from a very young age to coach voices. And I couldn't understand how in the world that could be when these catastrophic things had happened to me because I couldn't use my voice because of my upbringing. Now, in retrospect, many years later, I can see that I was born into the training ground. And I always knew that I could hear 7 layers of sound. I always knew I could hear voices and what was in the underbelly of the voice. I thought up until my 30s that everybody could hear the way that I can hear. And they can't. I can instantly hear 7 layers of sound in a voice. Now, here we are 30, 40 years later. I have created something I call psychology of the voice. And I created psychology of the voice based on it really started when I was teaching dialects, because while I didn't want to coach voices, people kept finding me in Yellow Pages days. I'm like, how are y'all finding me? And what we did back then was I taught dialects to actors for movies, and I took dialects away from business people. That's what we used to do 40 years ago. And I became fascinated. That was safe. That wasn't tapping into what I knew I could hear. And I became fascinated with, why do the Irish sound Irish and I sound Texan? And in that process, what I discovered in that fascination was actually my first research study. And that was how I discovered that actually the subconscious is calling the shots on how we use our voice 100%. Typical voice coaching says the air hits the vocal cords and vibe, all of this, and all of that is true. But I was very clear on the subconscious number one goal is to protect our heart. Our voice is the orchestra of our heart. And this is why day after day after day, I see people sitting in front of me struggling to say what they need to say, are misrepresented, are repelling ideal clients through sounds. So I became fascinated with it. And very, very early on, I created the concept of what I call psychology of the voice, that our experiences of our lives, predominantly before we're 5, information comes in, words are spoken. Why are you so loud? The subconscious kicks in and says, don't worry, I've got this. And literally starts controlling, if you will, how the muscles are going to hold the face, are going to allow the sound out. And so what I do is I instantly hear all those sounds in the top 6 layers that are telling the wrong story about the truth of who we are. And in that 7th layer is the gold of the truth of who we are. And I can hear that, and it becomes a North Star. So I take away the voice for people, the voice that the world said, this is who you have to be. And I bring people back to the voice of who they really are. In a nutshell, that's it.
And I've been through the process, and it's not as painful as it sounds. But sometimes it is as painful as it sounds. Yeah, it has its moments. Yeah. Okay, so a few things here. One of the things that I would love to unpack just for our listeners is that Tracy is a 6'2" splenic manifester. So you can hear her second line very clearly in this conversation. So as second lines, I'll say we, because I'm a second line as well. We have this natural gift and talent that we don't have a clue that we have. And we wait, the world calls it out of us, and we hermit away. And then the world's, no, you can't stay there. No, you have to share it with us. This is what we need from you. And it sounds like that's very much what happened to you. You had this thing that you thought everybody could do. That's what second lines think. Everybody can do what I do. We're not special. And then you said something about, it's like the work wouldn't leave you alone. You kept getting pulled into it. What was that like for you? What did it feel like, sound like, look like in your life?
Well, I hated it in a way in the beginning. And it was a great source of frustration for me. Hate's a strong word. It was more frustrating. I thought my purpose was to be an actor. Because I came to life on stage. I didn't understand that, and I was a professional actor when I was still a teenager. I didn't understand that what the stage gave me was a platform to be heard. I used it as a platform to be anyone but who I really am. And I became an actor, and I made a living as an actor, and I really struggled with actors. So I became a director. and I started directing plays all over the world. Now, at this point already, I'm winning acting awards for my voice. My actors, when I'm a director, are winning accolades for their voice. Major Fortune 500 corporations are calling me to come work with their voices. And I'm creating programs in federal prisons and I mean, just doing these extraordinary things. And I'm thinking, isn't that interesting? Huh. Well, it's a shame I can't do that. I'm a director. I'm an actor. And then it was really, for those of you that know the story of Jonah, who got gobbled up in the belly of a whale from the Bible because he didn't want to go to Nineveh, I was Jonah in the belly of the whale. Mm. And one day I realized I was fighting my gift because I had such severe imposter syndrome. And I was so afraid to say what I heard because, I mean, you've worked with me. I can lay it all out in minutes. Mm-hmm. I don't have a lot of friends because
you're scary.
They're like, what are you hearing? What do you hear? What do you hear? But it just kept coming at me to the point where I went, okay, I get it. I'll be a voice coach, but I only would be a typical voice coach where I taught typical technique. Slow down. You need a pause, and I was still heavy in the dialects because that was safe. But I taught typical voice coaching and I nearly lost my mind because I could hear the truth of what was happening. And I thought, if I say this, I'm going to be crazy because that had been the story I had been told my whole life. What is wrong with you? You are so crazy. You're crazy. That's not what's happening. Well, now all these years later, I can see that my whole family could feel that there was something in me and it scared them. So I did typical voice coaching. And it was fine. It wasn't like what I do now, and it didn't light me up like what I do now, but that was safe. So it just kept chasing me until I relented. And then about that time, I was asked to move to New York to teach at one of the greatest conservatories in the world. And I went, and that was when it really started to shift. And I started to see, it really started with a client, a man named Bill, who came to work with me because people weren't listening to him. And the day he walked into my office, I stood up and I said, Bill, it's so great to meet you. And he's this giant linebacker size guy. And he stuck out his hand and he said, it's really great to meet you too, Tracy. And out of nowhere, Vickie, what came out of my mouth was, do you have siblings? And he said, with a smile and a laugh, I have 6 older sisters. And I got this flood of information, just like dominoes, like a trail of dominoes. And it all just went boom, 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 boom. And I went, oh my gosh, I know what I'm supposed to do. Now, the insecure version of me made sure that I researched everything before it came out of my mouth. Now I research because I'm obsessed with it. But I got it in that moment that there was a gift and there was a purpose. And it was way bigger than slow down and pause. And then it wasn't too long after that, I discovered that everybody can't hear like I do.
And I love I'm always putting the human design hat on it. I love the deep, deep knowing. And so many of us have that in our designs. There's actually circuitry and channels that is like, you just know, and you couldn't, if you had 100 years, you couldn't explain to someone how you know it. And that feels really freaky. Especially for a second line, you're out here with your natural gifts and you can't explain how it comes in. And of course you feel inadequate. And of course you feel like an imposter because you can't say how you know, but you just feel it in every ounce of your being. I know what this guy needs. Yeah. And I mean, I've been lucky to be in the room with you and see you do that with me, with all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had to test it for a decade. I went and did a training in Texas where I'm from. And I did a little role play with a guy and I went, oh, I get it. You fell in love with a girl and you moved down here to Texas to be with her, but y'all broke up and you're not sure what you're going to do. You really like Texas, but you're thinking about moving back to Maryland and you're just really torn. And he said, how did you know that? And I went, oh, did I get it right? knowing that I did.
Yeah.
But I looked and he said yes. And I looked around the room and of course, everybody's kind of backing away like, what kind of freak show is this? And I said, did y'all hear what I heard? And they said, oh, we do. So I spent the next 10 years is what I'm calling out. I had to have that verification is what I'm calling out, what the subconscious of the listener is processing. And here we are 30 years later, and I'm not wrong yet. Mm-hmm. So it's really that gift. And I've always viewed it as a gift. I've never not been wildly grateful. I think I was born into that family as an incredible training ground because I learned to navigate exactly what was happening in silence for safety, because I had to be ready. And so I learned to just navigate the sounds of energy, the sounds in the frequency of even in the silence.
So now you work with a lot of different people. I know you work in corporations, but you work with entrepreneurs, which is how I found you. You work with entrepreneurs, and you say that our voice is, or you believe that our voice is the thing. It's repelling people. What is it, 30 to 80% of sales we could be leaving on the table? Tell me a little bit about how you work with entrepreneurs, or how maybe the masks that we're wearing, why voice is important.
Yeah. So I would say 60% of my business at any given time is entrepreneurs. I love all my people, but I find entrepreneurs, for the most part, incredibly coachable. Where to start with this? Yes, everybody's voice at a minimum is leaving 30% of their buyers, even the best of the best, even the 8-figure entrepreneurs I work with, they hire me to find that 30%. Because there's hidden sounds. So we process sound on a subconscious level, and we do it within seconds. So everybody is processing everybody's sound subconsciously and instantly making decisions. What is happening is the majority of the sounds that are coming out of the voice are repelling, are blocking connection, are misrepresenting. Now, this comes from our psychology of the voice. I mentioned Bill. So let me go back to Bill's story. Bill had 6 older sisters. Bill's sisters, he loved them. They loved him, but they were constantly going, Bill, you're so loud. You have to get out. Bill, you have to get out of our room. You're too loud. Okay. Bill's subconscious said, okay, don't worry. I've got this. We're going to make you really quiet. So now Bill's talking like this, and he's going in the boardroom and he's saying, we've got to make this change. And everybody's making a decision on that sound that says Bill we don't even listen to him. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. So now Bill has this frustration because of this sound that does not represent the truth of who he is. So we have all these internal stories and all these internal insecurities that are manifesting in sounds that I call voice masks. So with Bill's story, one of his main voice masks was the mask of do not bother, because he didn't want to bother his sisters. So if I just go into the boardroom and I say, we have a major financial problem, we're going to lose a lot of money if we don't take this action. He's not bothering anybody. And they're going, you're crazy. You don't even know what you're talking about. We got to do this thing over here. And he doesn't want to bother anybody. So he's going, well, I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, we're doing the thing, Bill. And off they go. And we all wear masks because we all have stories, and we're all misrepresenting ourselves in our buyer's mind, especially. Selling is the fastest way for me to bring out the worst in a voice. Well, I don't want to bother anybody. Well, I've got to prove I know what I'm talking about. Well, I've got to justify this price. All this stuff is coming out in sound, and we don't even realize it because, and this is not a criticism, even though it will sound like one, we're not thinking about voice. We're thinking about, I got to get the funnel, and I got to get the price, and I got to get the offer, and I got to get out there, and I got to get the messaging, and I got to ram it down their throat like this. I don't know why they're not buying. Because you rammed it down their throat like that, and you repelled them with that sound, and they shut you down in 3 seconds, and they decided you were not the one when you were the one. but all your sounds and all your masks told me the wrong story. So we throw this word around, authenticity, and it makes me crazy. We throw it around, but does anybody explain what it is? Very few. Well, what it is all the real sounds in me that I'm not afraid to show you. Multiple people that have worked with me have said, you have the most amazing people in your groups. Yeah, because they know
Real.
I'm their one. They heard it in my voice, and I delivered what they were looking for. I didn't pretend to be professional or something like that because I'm scared you're going to think I don't know. So I'm going to put my professional mask on. And then you're over there going, I don't know. I like her stuff, but I don't know. No, you know exactly what you're going to get with me. And that's what authenticity is bringing up all those sounds that are buried within us because we're trying to be what the world says. I've got to be a people pleaser. I got to prove I know. I've got to be professional. I've got to be superior. I've got to be a cheerleader. Welcome to the webinar. I'm so glad y'all are here. It's great. Okay. You just lost your retention.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a retention problem because you did that, because you were being what the world said you needed to be, because surely you're not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we've bought the lie. And so we keep pushing the same. I see it every day, that we watch somebody that's successful online come out like this, and we start doing it. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's not even who you are. But we chase these external things, and we apply those sounds, and then we leave our buyer disconnected from us because voice masks block, and they don't know who we are, and they certainly don't hear who they think we are. So there's just major disconnect. I don't really know who you are, and I don't really know if you can deliver the experience I want. So I guess I better go find that person. And that's how we leave so much money on the table.
Then all of a sudden we find out that ChatGPT can write our content for us, and AI can clip our videos and make our voices sound better. And so we can speed up our reels and we can do all of the things. How are you feeling about AI these days and authenticity?
Well, I will tell you that AI is truly the greatest thing that's ever happened for my business, because according to the research and the current research that I'm doing right now, people are leaning in like never before to hear a real voice because they are so afraid of being betrayed. Mm-hmm. So it took me a long time to start researching AI. I was afraid of what I would find. If you want to know the truth, I was afraid I would discover, even though there was a part of me that knew I wouldn't, I was afraid. So let me back up a minute. You asked a question earlier about why is the voice the everything? The voice is the everything. It's if I can't listen to you, I won't make it to your funnel. Mm-hmm. If I can't stand your voice, I won't make it to your podcast. If I can't stand your voice, I will not watch your reel. So it is the beautiful wrapping around the gift. So I was afraid, there was a part of me that was afraid that I was going to find that you could not discern the difference, because everybody started making these AI characters. Yeah. And you started seeing all these ads about, we'll make your voice. And I went, whoa. No, hold on a minute. And so I started looking into it, and I looked at what the data said, and the data was very disappointing to me, because the data said it was a very small percentage of people that could tell the difference. And I went, I really struggle with that. I'm really having a hard time with that. I have to dig deeper, and I have to do more research of my own. And it was about that time that I saw a side by side, and it was the same person delivering the same content. It's a very well-known person who has a very large podcast, a video podcast. And he showed the AI and he showed the real. And I went, I'm right. I'm right. I knew what the difference was all along. And the difference, and I can tell you what the difference is, but the difference is the one thing that AI can't deliver. And it's the one thing that people are seeking. And that is why that, along with buyer trust being decimated and people having been burned, people are leaning into sound more than ever before. One of the number one reasons people want to work with me, or I get a lot of reach outs on this, Tracy, can you make me sound real in an AI world? Is something that people message me a lot. The catalyst for this, the precursor for this, was buyer trust. In retrospect, what I'm discovering in the research is that people that have been burned, which is almost everybody, can say to me, I knew he was going to screw me over. I knew she was lying, in retrospect. So what that's doing is that's causing people to listen differently. So they're leaning in to hear the nuances that AI cannot deliver, because the nuances and the feeling and the authenticity, the seventh layer sounds, are buried in the frequency. The frequency of the AI voice is flat. It's flat from the perspective of it cannot hit my senses and make me feel. It can sound like you, but there is no depth to it. It cannot move me. Real frequency can move me. I'm grateful in a way because it's bringing people back home to their real voice, and people are seeking that real voice. But it's also terrifying to me that it's so fabricated, and that we're, for the sake of time, we're willing to fabricate a persona. For the sake of time. It's a protection mechanism. It's subconscious has got to be loving this. This protection mechanism of, I don't even have to show up and say it. You're never really going to know me. And that's a horrible place to be, that we're all out there sounding great, but we're not sounding real.
It feels like an outsourcing of the soul of who we are.
Yeah.
On so many levels right now.
Definitely, because the nuances of our vocal makeup create the experience that people are seeking. When buyers buy, they want a certain experience, and people don't think about sound this way until they hear me talk about it, and then they can totally see it. So let's say I wanted to hire a health coach, and you've probably heard me tell this story before. If I wanted to hire a health coach, I'm not going to have somebody yelling at me. That's a sound. That's a feeling. You're going to make me feel like you are militaristic and mean by sounds in your voice. I don't want that. But I also know that I will manipulate over cupcakes. That's a sound. So the person's going to have a backbone. That's a sound that creates a feeling. I'm seeking an experience of a health coach, of the way I'm going to, I want to feel. AI voice can't do that. AI voice can sound a certain way. It can even mimic the nuances. It can mimic those sounds in my voice, but there's nothing in it that can make me feel it. It's like looking at a glossy photo versus being in the room with somebody. You feel their energy when you're in the room with them. The voice is nothing but energy and frequency and experiences of the truth of who we are. And that's what people are seeking.
And I feel like it's the same for writing. I know that your arena is the voice, but you can tell AI written content. I have someone who guested on this series. The episode hasn't run yet, but she talks about how she can feel into the energy. And as soon as she reads something that's AI generated, it just feels dead to her. It feels flat, much like probably it sounds to your ear.
Yeah.
And do you hear that difference in frequency? Like you, Tracy, with the 6 layers, do you hear that there's nothing there with the chat GPT or the AI generated versus the human?
Yes and no. Surface level hearing is not where I can tell the difference. It's the way it makes me feel. It's devoid of feeling. I would probably hear it, but I would definitely feel it. The difference is a lot like masks. So I'm talking to you now like I always talk to you, and it feels a certain way. But when I put my professional mask on, I lose the depth.
That's my favorite one that you do.
Yeah, it's my favorite too, because it makes me sound so smart. And so when I put it on, it's still me, but there's no depth to it. And it feels like it's going to slip out of your hand. But it's really more about the feeling that I feel. Like when I watched that side by side, which was the catalyst for me to really dive into, okay, what is happening here? It was 100%. I could feel it. I could feel the depth of the emotion that he was expressing. And it was exactly the same, Vickie. But there was no question in my mind, even before he told me which one was real and which one was AI. I could feel the emotion because I have that emotion in me. I felt nothing in the other one, and it sounded exactly the same. So I don't know that I hear them differently, but I feel the sounds differently. If that makes sense at all.
Yeah, it does, because I think that's a human thing, human to human as well. So I'm picturing people scrolling on Instagram. I feel like it's going to be easier and easier to just dismiss as we're going through, because, well, and I do feel that way, that it feels like everything is fake. There are lots of times in my life now where I'm like, I don't believe anything anymore. I feel like everything is fake. Everything's a show. Everything's a game, which is different for entrepreneurs when we bring our whole selves to our businesses and we show up and we write and we show up and we use our own voice and we use our own video and all of those things. It's so different.
Well, and I agree. But here's the silver lining on it. I agree that everything feels fake, and who do we trust and who do we listen to, and all of it's fabricated, and nobody cares, and et cetera, et cetera. I had this conversation on my podcast recently with someone we both know, James Wedmore. And we were talking about something that is the silver lining in this, is that, and it's linked to the way people hear. The people that are real are having a level of success that they've never had before. So I believe now James is very successful, runs a multi-million-dollar company. He had 40,000 leads opt in for his recent what's it called?
Launch.
The launch. Yeah. The person that I worked with on their launch right before that, she's very successful. I walked her launch with her. She does a $1 million launch, 30,000 opt-ins, $2 million launch. I believe James had a $4 million launch. So the disparity is there. The people that are real, the people that are honest, the people that are in integrity, the people that are authentic and showing up and really showing up as themselves, they're going to rise. The people that are, let me just get Chat GPT to make my video, or, let me cut this corner, or let me copy what everybody else is doing, because there's so much of that in the world as well. I deal with that all the time. I have to take away what people are doing because they're just copying somebody that was successful. That's almost like they're going to eat themselves alive. There's going to be this balance shift where the people that are pretending and the people that are fake and the people that are you can't connect to, they're going to really struggle, where the others are really going to thrive. And that's the thing. It's like I really feared AI from a voice perspective, but now I can see how it's actually the greatest thing that could have ever happened to my business, because people are finally being pushed to the precipice of, okay, I've got to learn how to get over myself and show up, because for years we didn't have to. For years we could just pretend, and that pretend is just at an all-time off the charts. Even the writing, and I can't tell the difference. I hear people talk about that all the time, about they can instantly spot a Chat GPT written email. Now, I can't tell that, but the way I use AI is I always write it first. I write it, and then I have Chat GPT make it look a little better,
Yeah,
And then I
refine.
go, refine it. And then I go back in with another sweep. But I guess this is what I hear you saying, that people are just having them write my course, write my book, write my movie, write my,
Mhm.
without any creativity whatsoever. I
Mhm.
guess that's what people are doing.
Yeah, I was at an event and there was an AI panel on stage. And one of the gentlemen said that he was bragging that he had just written a course completely with AI, every bit of it with AI. And he launched it and made $100,000. And people were clapping for him in the audience. And I felt like I wanted to be sick to my stomach. I was
Yeah.
like, and there was someone else who was talking about, she was an author, and she was talking about how we no longer need to buy books. Now, my house has hundreds of books. Some I will never read, but I mean, I just am a book lover. And she said that you just put it through AI. You just put the title through AI and ask, knowing my business and my life, what are the key points that I need to know from XYZ book? And she's like, don't buy books anymore. And she's an author. So I find there's a lot of it that's really quite horrifying that's happening in the space. And I am someone who can tell a chat GPT written post, an AI written post, like right away. Some are worse than others.
Yeah.
But I do think there's the energy. The energy's not there. And
Yeah.
it's different when you're putting
Yeah.
yourself in and you're using it to refine or you're using it to ideate, something like that, and then it's still got you. Yeah. It's quite a slope we're on.
Well, it is terrifying. And to me, it's terrifying. And I don't mean to be a downer on it, because I do think that there's value in it. I think you can train it. I know of many people that are training it to do help with sales and writing. I mean, I've even trained mine to have a similar voice to mine, so that when I put and I just use it to help with email. That's really,
Mhm.
well, although I did do this fascinating thing about, where I should live.
Astrocartography.
Yeah, I did
Astrocartography.
do that. I
Yeah.
did do that. And then I started calling it my Chat GPT boyfriend. And I went, okay, I got to cut this off right now. Because you can almost become addicted to it. And it
Yeah.
is so easy. But we talked about this right before we jumped on. MIT's come out with a study, and it's terrifying. To me, this is a very short amount of time. I
Mhm.
mean, when did ChatGPT come out? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years
Yeah.
ago? Maybe,
Maybe. Yeah.
maybe. Okay. They're already seeing challenges with what's happening with the brain,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
people can't, and I don't remember everything the study said, and I don't want to quote it wrong, but it's significantly negatively affecting the brain.
Yeah.
Just like when they took kids off of blocks and puzzles and started putting them on learning to take here in the States anyway, they started taking kindergartners and started teaching them to pass a test. We teach to the test. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
bypassed that. My generation didn't do that. But then they started teaching to the test. So they took away blocks and puzzles and all these things. And now they literally can look at brain scans and say, basically, that part of the brain doesn't work anymore,
Yeah.
because there was an eye motor. I'm not an expert in this. I just think it's fascinating. So that's very concerning to me,
Mm-hmm.
that we're rerouting our brain, and are we creating an environment where we can't think for ourselves anymore?
Yeah. Yes. And because it's my show, I'm going to say, I wonder sometimes if that's not the point, that
Oh,
we
I
no
agree
longer,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
we no longer have critical thinking skills as a
Yeah.
collective.
Yeah.
And that is horrifying.
Well, it
Horrifying.
is. And what's even more horrifying is how fast it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like this accelerated speed is
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
But what if Leonardo da Vinci or Pablo Picasso had done easy?
Mm-hmm.
What about Moby Dick? What about The Godfather? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so aligned with purpose in my mind. I was going to be a voice coach. That is what I was put here to do. And not a lot of it's been easy, but we've become this species that it's all about fast, and it's all about ease, and it's all about how can we put in more. But where's the creativity? Where's the purpose? Where's the uniqueness? What I believe, we all have a purpose. I believe our purpose is like a thumbprint, and I believe a voice is like a thumbprint. There's not one single voice like any other. Then the nuances of that voice are so crucial to find. But as we just become this hurried species of that's good enough, that's very concerning to me.
And maybe there is opportunity for some of us. Maybe it will actually bring us back to ourselves more. And I'm not anti-AI. Like, I mean, I don't think it's going anywhere. It's here.
Yeah.
But how do we keep ourselves? How do we maintain sovereignty?
Yeah.
Over our businesses, over our lives in this age of AI? How do we keep our creativity?
Yeah. Well, and I'm not anti-AI either. I think it serves an incredible purpose. And I think we have to stay in alignment with that purpose. But I think we have to really understand the uniqueness of who we are. And we have to stop wanting to be like everybody else. We have to be willing to move away from the cookie cutter. They're successful. I'll be like them. I'll sound like them. I'll look like them. I'll buy like them. That's what we have to get away from. And we have to really, and I think that comes from worth. We have to get back to seeing our own worth and value in the uniqueness of who we are. Now, that's a tricky one because we live in a cancel culture. And this is a huge problem for people using their voice. I'm afraid to show up and use my voice and really express myself and really give an opinion or really show an emotion. I don't want to show an emotion because I don't want to be misunderstood, and I don't want to make people feel bad, and I don't want them to think we're watering down everything. Yeah. And we just become these copycats. So we've got to find our way back to our own worth and our own value and what we bring to the table. I think that's a start. So for our listeners, I know you just said that's a start, value and worth, but that's a big piece to get a hold of. Like, okay, I'm gonna understand that I'm valuable and worthy. What's the line for our listeners if they're looking at using AI, if they're looking at putting their voice out there, putting their writing out there? What's the line that you would say? Don't cross that line. Hold on to this bit of yourself for you. Show the world that piece of yourself. Oh, that's a stumper of a question. let me think about that for a second. What is the line that keeps them? What keeps people in alignment with the truth of who they are? Yeah, and I think in the very beginning you said something about being in an integrity, like in integrity with your purpose. How are we going to stay there when we're in this AI soup that we're in? Well, the first thing that came to mind, and I'm not sure if this is the final answer, but the first thing that came to mind is we have to work from, and when I say work from, I mean the internal driver. The internal driver can't be, I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough. The internal driver can't be, I have to hurry. I just will have, it's just easier to do Chat GPT. The internal driver must be, how do I want to make people feel? What is the experience I want to create for the people in this world that are supposed to cross my path? That's my first take on that question, because that's the thing. AI, it doesn't feel. And what came through for me was, imagine if we all did that. Imagine if as entrepreneurs or creatives, we all came from the place of, how do I want my people to feel? We could change the world. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And when we work from, what do I want people to feel? I'm making it about you. And we navigate the world, and this is a big driver of voice masks and repellents. We navigate the world from the wounds that are behind the voice. How do I keep you from rejecting me? How do I keep you from judging me? How do I be worthy enough for you? That's out there. That's out there. But when I bring it back in and I say, what do I want you to feel? I'm really not thinking about me. I'm thinking about you. When I'm thinking about how you could judge me if I show up and say something that I really believe in or express it with a certain kind of emotion, I'm actually making it about me. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have. Is we're like a bunch of little robots. We're like a bunch of little AI robots walking around going, what about me? What about me? What about me? What about me? And that may be why AI is so easy, because we relate to it. What do you have for me? How can you make my life easier? How can you make my life faster? And I think we have to go back to, how can I make your life better? How can I create an experience for you that changes your worth and value so that you can see who you truly are?
Yeah. Instead of, this is going to be my 6-figure launch, this is going to be my 7-figure launch, thinking those thoughts as well, that as entrepreneurs, we can get into the trap of, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here and having this important conversation. I appreciate you. And where can people find you?
Well, I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for having me on. And I am Captivate the Room everywhere. CaptivateTheRoom.com. I'm Captivate the Room on Instagram. I'm Captivate the Room everywhere except LinkedIn. I'm Tracy A. Goodwin.
Okay. We'll link that up in the show notes too. Thank you for being here, Tracy.
Thank you.